It's strange how money shapes everything around me, even the simplest moments. I never thought I'd be writing this kind of story about my life at 27, but here I am, feeling like I'm swimming against a current that only grows stronger every day. I want to be honest about what it feels like, this constant, exhausting pressure that never lets up, the way the economic world traps me in a cycle I can't seem to escape. I wake up every morning with this familiar knot in my stomach. It's not just the stress of the day ahead, it's the creeping awareness that the little money I have will somehow have to stretch further than it did yesterday. Rent went up again last month, my phone bill just hit a new high, and don't even get me started on groceries. Every trip to the store feels like a math test. How many essentials can I afford this week without digging too deep into savings that I'm supposed to keep for emergencies? Spoiler, the emergency fund is more of a dream than a reality at this point. I work full-time, and some days I even pick up extra shifts, hoping that those extra hours will finally push me over a threshold where I feel secure. But the cost of living just grows faster than my paycheck. It's like chasing a shadow. No matter how fast I run, it stays just out of reach. I know I'm not alone in this. So many people my age talk about making it or getting ahead, but the truth feels more like being stuck in quicksand. The hardest part is how this pressure shapes my decisions. I used to dream about traveling, about going back to school for something I love, maybe even starting a small business on the side. But those dreams feel distant now, luxuries I can't justify when every dollar has to be pinched. Last year, I had to say no to a trip to visit my family across the country. It crushed me, but the plane ticket was more than half my monthly rent. I told myself it was just 1 year, that next year would be better, but that next year still hasn't come. Even on days off, I find myself planning not around what I want to do, but around what I can afford to do. I've learned to appreciate free things, the park, a book from the library, a walk around the neighborhood. Those moments help, but they're a reminder too, of how much I'm missing out on. It's hard to watch friends go out for dinners, concerts, or weekend trips, knowing that for me, those things are once-in-a-blue-moon treats. Socializing has started to feel like a balancing act between wanting to connect and needing to protect my budget. Emotionally, it's draining. Sometimes, I feel ashamed, like I'm not doing enough or that I'm failing somehow. I've had to swallow a lot of pride to ask for help or admit that I'm struggling. There's this unspoken rule that adults should have their finances together, but I don't. I'm barely keeping up, and that weighs heavily on my self-esteem. Nights are the worst, when I lie awake calculating bills in my head, wondering what I'll do if something unexpected happens, a car repair, a medical bill, or even just a broken appliance. Coping means learning small ways to get through. I meditate sometimes, though it's hard to quiet my mind. I journal, trying to remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank account. I talk to close friends, though I don't always tell them everything because I don't want to be the person with the problems. Honestly, just getting through each day feels like an accomplishment. Despite all this, I try to hold on to hope. Hope that one day, the work I do will translate into stability. Hope that the economy will shift, that wages will catch up to costs, or maybe that I'll find a way to pivot my career. I remind myself that this phase isn't permanent, even if it feels endless right now. My dreams haven't disappeared, they're just paused, waiting for a better time. I want to believe that someday I'll save enough to travel again, to learn something new, or even just to live without counting every penny. Writing this out makes me feel a little lighter, like I'm not alone in the struggle. If you're reading this and feeling the same way, I want you to know it's okay to admit it. Life right now can be hard, and the system often feels rigged against us. But we're still here, still trying, still hoping. That counts for something. Maybe the real dream is just finding peace in the chaos, learning to breathe through the pressure, and believing that a better future is possible. I'm still holding on to that. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I never imagined I'd feel this way at 26, like I'm running on a treadmill that only speeds up while I stand still. Every month, the same routine: paycheck lands, bills pounce, and what's left barely covers food and the smallest comforts. I catch myself counting every cent, wondering if I should skip lunch, hold off on the bus fare, or even turn off the heater just to save a few dollars. The numbers on my bank app have become this cold, constant reminder that I'm trapped. Growing up, I always thought I'd have more control over my life by now. I pictured paying my own rent, maybe traveling a little, even saving up for a place of my own someday. But the truth is, the world feels heavier than I expected. The cost of living keeps climbing: rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, while my income inches forward, if at all. Inflation isn't just a headline or a number on TV, it's the reason I now hesitate before filling my cart with anything that isn't on sale or marked down. It's the silent force squeezing my options until there are almost none left. I work 2 jobs. One is a steady office gig, the other a late-night shift at a cafe. Both pay just enough to keep me afloat, but never enough to breathe easy. I'm always exhausted, juggling schedules, trying not to miss work because missing means no paycheck, and no paycheck means the dominoes start falling. Sometimes I feel like I'm sacrificing my health and sanity just to keep the lights on and my phone connected. It's funny how stress sneaks in quietly, bit by bit. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just a phase, a stepping stone. But the longer this drags on, the heavier the weight on my chest. Anxiety has become a constant companion, whispering doubts: am I doing enough? Will I ever catch up? The nights get restless as my mind runs through the endless list of unpaid bills and looming deadlines. There's this gnawing fear that no matter how hard I work, the gap between expenses and income will never shrink, it only grows wider. Every decision feels like a gamble. Should I accept an invitation out, knowing it might mean skipping dinner the next day? Can I afford a doctor's visit if I get sick? Do I keep my subscription to that one streaming service, even if it means cutting back on groceries? These aren't just financial choices, they're choices about what kind of life I want to live, and what I have to give up to survive. Some days, I mask it well. I laugh with friends, post upbeat photos online, pretend I'm not exhausted or worried. But inside, there's a simmering frustration. It's not just about money, it's about the system that seems designed to keep people like me running in place. I see the headlines about housing prices skyrocketing, about jobs becoming more precarious, about wealth concentrating at the top. And I wonder how anyone can feel hopeful when the rules are stacked so heavily against us. I've had to postpone so many dreams. Traveling abroad, which once felt like an achievable goal, now seems like a distant luxury. Pursuing further education or training to improve my skills, each course costs more than I can spare. Even small things, like buying a new laptop or replacing worn-out shoes, turn into months-long debates with myself. I remind myself that these sacrifices are for the future, but the future keeps slipping further away. Sometimes, late at night, I stare at the ceiling and try to imagine a different life. One where I'm not anxious about overdraft fees or rising rent. One where I wake up excited instead of drained. I picture a job where I feel valued and fairly compensated, where the hours don't crush my spirit. I dream about a home that's mine, not just a temporary place to sleep. But these visions feel fragile, like glass I can't afford to hold too tightly. What keeps me going? It's the small moments, the kindness of friends who offer a meal or a ride, the feeling of accomplishment when I finish a tough project, the rare quiet afternoon when I can breathe without worry. I'm learning to find strength in vulnerability, to admit that I'm struggling instead of pretending otherwise. And I hold on to hope, even if it's just a flicker, that things can change, that maybe, someday, the system will bend enough to let someone like me move forward without feeling crushed. I want to believe that my story isn't just about surviving but about eventually thriving. That this relentless pressure will one day ease, and I can reclaim the dreams I had to shelve. Until then, I keep taking it day by day, paycheck by paycheck, holding on to the possibility that my hard work means something, even if the system makes it feel otherwise. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26. When I was a kid, I imagined by now I'd be out of the nest, flying on my own, maybe even saving for a place of my own, somewhere that felt like a real home, not just a rented room in a building that could be sold out from under me any day. But here I am, still tangled in the same financial struggle I thought I'd outgrow, still staring down expenses that climb higher and higher while my paycheck barely budges. It feels like a trap with no exit. Every morning starts the same. I wake up with this knot in my stomach, not the kind that fades after breakfast, but a dull, persistent ache that lingers all day. It's the weight of bills, rent, groceries, gas, and the tiny emergencies that pop up like weeds, my car making a weird noise, a phone screen crack, a friend asking for help with a shared bill. None of these things are luxuries. They're just survival. I work a decent job, steady, but not exactly well paid. I should be grateful, I know. But the reality is that no matter how hard I work, the numbers don't add up. Rent's gone up again this year, and I'm still stuck in the same apartment because I can't afford to move. Utilities and insurance climb. Even groceries feel like a luxury sometimes. Last month, I found myself skipping a few meals here and there, hoping it wouldn't show too much on my paycheck deductions or my energy levels at work. Spoiler, it did. It's this constant balancing act, juggling expenses, and trying to save just a little bit, but saving feels like a joke. Every time I manage to put a few dollars aside, something urgent eats it up. A dentist appointment that wasn't planned, a car repair, or a family emergency. I watch my bank account like a hawk, but it's always on the edge, never enough to give me peace. What's worse is the emotional toll. I'm not just stressed about money, I'm scared. Scared about what happens if the job stops, if a bigger emergency hits. I hear people talk about building a future, but for me, it feels like I'm just treading water. That dream of buying a home, of traveling, or even just not having to count every cent, it feels like a fantasy. I'm embarrassed to admit how often I hide the reality from friends and family. I don't want to be that person who always says no or who can't keep up. So I put on a brave face, laugh at jokes, and sometimes I even buy coffee or go out just to feel normal. But inside, the anxiety never really leaves. It's exhausting. Some days, I catch myself dreaming, what if I could just breathe? What if I could slow down for a moment? I want to take classes, learn new skills, maybe switch careers to something better paying, but everything costs money. Even free classes seem impossible when transportation and time off work come into play. So those dreams sit quietly in a corner, growing dust. Sometimes, I think about the system we're in. It feels like it's built to keep people like me stuck. Wages that barely keep pace with inflation, housing markets that are sky high, healthcare that drains your wallet. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while you're gasping for breath. And no matter how fast or hard I run, the finish line never gets closer. Coping isn't easy. I try to find small pockets of joy, listening to music, late-night walks, chatting with a friend who gets it. I'm learning to accept help sometimes, even though it feels humbling. And I remind myself that this isn't a failure on my part. It's the reality for so many people right now, caught in a system that's bigger than any one of us. At night, I sometimes cry, not because I want to, but because the weight gets too much. Because the dreams I had when I was younger feel so far away. Because I'm tired. But even in those moments, there's a tiny spark. A hope that maybe, somehow, things will get better. That one day, I'll look back and see that this struggle was just a chapter, not the whole story. For now, I take it day by day. I remind myself that I'm doing my best. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. I never thought I'd feel this stuck. Not in the way I do now, where every day is a balancing act between the money I have and the bills I don't. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every few months. No matter how fast I run, I just can't get ahead. My paycheck used to feel like a small victory when it landed in my account, but now, it's just a reminder of how much I have to stretch and scrimp. I'm in my late 20s, working full-time at a job that pays just enough to cover rent, utilities, groceries, and the bare minimum for my phone and internet. The rent alone eats up almost half of my income. I live in a cramped apartment on the edge of the city, the kind that feels too noisy and too small but somehow affordable enough to keep the roof over my head. Every month, I carefully map out expenses on a spreadsheet, and even then, I'm often short by the end of the week. The cost of living keeps going up: groceries, gas, insurance, everything seems to get more expensive while my paycheck barely moves. The economic news doesn't help. Headlines talk about inflation rates and rising interest, but it feels like a language made for people with extra cash to spare, or for those with investments or savings cushions I don't have. I don't have the luxury to worry about stocks or retirement funds. I worry about whether I can afford the bus fare to work or if I should skip a meal to cover the electricity bill. The constant pressure gnaws at me, a dull ache in the back of my mind that I can't shake. I've learned to be resourceful out of necessity. I clip coupons, hunt for sales, and buy in bulk when I can. I cook at home almost every night, which isn't always easy after a long day when all I want is to collapse and watch something mindless on TV. Sometimes I skip social outings or say no to friends because there's just no money left for extras. Birthday dinners, weekend trips, even casual coffee meetups, all these things become luxuries I can't afford. And slowly, I feel myself pulling away from people, not because I want to, but because it's easier to say no than to explain why I can't join in. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I try to stay positive, but the stress builds up, quiet and heavy. There are nights I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is how it's going to be forever. The feeling of being trapped is suffocating, like there's a glass ceiling not just over my career but over my life. I see other people moving forward, buying homes, starting families, traveling, and I feel left behind, stuck in this loop of just surviving. I used to have big dreams. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a master's degree, something to push my career further and finally break free from this cycle. I dreamed about traveling, seeing new places, experiencing life outside this tiny bubble of bills and work. But every time I think about the cost, the time, the energy, it all feels impossible. I've had to postpone dreams indefinitely, tucking them away for a someday that feels further and further away. Some days, I feel embarrassed to admit how hard it is. People say, just budget better, or find a side hustle, but it's not that simple. I've tried. I picked up a few side gigs, but the hours drained me, and the extra money barely covered the added expenses like gas and childcare. I help my sister with her kids sometimes. The system isn't designed for people like me to get ahead quickly, it's designed to keep us running, tired and chasing numbers that never quite add up. But I'm still here. I'm still trying. I find small moments of joy where I can: a walk in the park, a call with a friend, a book from the library. I hold on to the hope that someday, things will change. Maybe I'll find a better job, maybe I'll get a raise, maybe the economy will shift so that living doesn't feel like a constant battle. Until then, I keep going, even when it's hard, even when I feel invisible to a world that seems to value money more than people. I don't want pity, I just want to be heard. To have someone understand that this isn't about laziness or bad choices, it's about being caught in a system where expenses grow faster than incomes, where survival is a daily grind, and where dreams have to wait, not because we don't want them, but because the cost of living demands every bit of our energy. Maybe one day I'll tell a different story. One where the treadmill slows down, and I can finally step off and breathe. But for now, I'm here, living this story, honestly, vulnerably, trying to make it through. It's a strange kind of exhaustion, not the kind that comes from physical tiredness, but a deep, persistent weariness that clings to you every moment. I'm 26, and the weight of money feels like a constant shadow, pressing down on me so hard I'm not sure how much longer I can carry it. It's not just about having a tight budget or missing out on nice things, it's about feeling trapped in a system where no matter how hard I work, the bills keep piling up faster than my paycheck grows. Every day starts with a calculation. Coffee or save the $3? Skip the subway and walk or risk being late? Do I need this new pair of shoes, or can I stretch the ones I have for a few more months? The economic environment is unforgiving, and I'm learning that my decisions aren't about wants anymore, they're about survival. I graduated college with some hope, naively thinking that a degree would be my ticket to stability. But I was wrong. The job market is competitive, and wages haven't kept pace with inflation. Rent in the city has skyrocketed, groceries get more expensive each week, and utilities seem to have no end in sight. I work 2 jobs, sometimes 3 if I pick up extra shifts, but it never feels like enough. I constantly feel like I'm running on a treadmill that speeds up every time I try to slow down. There was a time when I dreamed big. I wanted to travel, maybe live abroad for a year. I pictured myself in a small apartment filled with books and plants, spending weekends exploring art galleries or cafes with friends. Now, those dreams seem so far away, like they belong to someone else. Every paycheck gets swallowed up by rent, food, student loans, and the crushing cost of healthcare. The idea of saving for a future feels like a joke. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. There are days I feel proud, when I manage to cover all my bills on time or find a little extra to put away. But those moments are rare and often fleeting. Mostly, there's this gnawing anxiety, like a storm cloud that never lifts. I lie awake at night thinking about what happens if I get sick, or if I lose one of my jobs, or if an unexpected expense hits. The stress seeps into every part of my life, relationships, sleep, even my self-worth. I've become really good at coping, though. I've learned to celebrate the small wins, a homemade meal instead of takeout, a night in with a book instead of a night out, free events instead of expensive concerts. I keep a budget religiously, tracking every dollar, and I'm always on the lookout for discounts or secondhand items. Social media is both a blessing and a curse. I connect with others struggling like me, but it's hard not to compare my reality to the highlight reels of people who seem to have it all. Sometimes, I feel invisible, like the system wasn't made for people like me to succeed. It's designed to keep us running, just barely ahead of the next bill. I'm caught in this cycle of working so hard but never quite getting ahead, and that sense of being stuck is suffocating. I want to believe that if I keep pushing, things will get better. But the truth is, the longer this goes on, the harder it is to hold on to hope. Yet, despite everything, I still have dreams. They're quieter now, more practical, but they're there. I want to own a small home someday, somewhere peaceful. I want to travel, even if it's just a road trip. I want to feel secure enough to take risks, maybe start a side project, learn a new skill, or go back to school. For now, those dreams feel like distant stars, but I try to remind myself that stars are still there, even when the sky is cloudy. I know I'm not alone in this. I hear stories from friends and strangers who feel the same pressure, the same fear of falling behind. Maybe that's what keeps me going, the shared experience, the collective hope that we can find a way out, or at least a way through. It's not easy to talk about, but I'm trying to be honest with myself and others about what it means to live with this kind of financial pressure. It's not just numbers on a page or statistics in a report, it's the daily choices, the emotional toll, and the postponed dreams. It's real, and it's heavy. But I'm still here, still trying to find a way to breathe, still hoping for a better tomorrow. And maybe that's enough, for now. I never thought I'd find myself here, feeling so cornered by something as simple as money. It's strange how something that's supposed to be a tool, a means to an end, can turn into a cage. Every month, I wake up with a pit in my stomach, wondering how I'm going to stretch what little I have until the next paycheck. And it's not that I'm reckless or wasteful, far from it. I watch every dollar, every cent, as if it's my lifeline, because honestly, it is. The economic environment around me feels like this massive, relentless tide, and I'm just a single person trying to stay afloat. Prices keep climbing faster than I can earn, and no matter how many hours I put in or how many side gigs I pick up, it never feels enough. Rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, they all take a bigger bite out of my paycheck than they did last year. Even the small things, like a cup of coffee or a meal out with friends, feel like luxuries I can't afford anymore. I've learned to cook at home every night, pack lunches, and avoid any non-essential purchases. But even with all these sacrifices, I'm still just barely scraping by. It's exhausting, this constant balancing act. Sometimes I lie awake at night, heart pounding, wondering if I'm doing something wrong or if I'm just not trying hard enough. But the truth is, I'm working harder than I ever have before, just not seeing the rewards. It's like running on a treadmill that's speeding up every day. No matter how fast I go, I never get any closer to where I want to be. This pressure seeps into every part of my life. Social invitations get declined more often than I like, because spending even a little feels irresponsible. I miss out on gatherings and celebrations, not because I don't want to be there, but because I can't afford it. The loneliness that comes with that is a quiet ache I'm still learning to live with. My friends don't always understand why I can't just hang out, and it's hard to explain that it's not about the company, it's about the cost. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. There are days when I feel hopeful, clutching onto the belief that this is temporary, that with patience and perseverance, things will improve. Then there are days when despair settles in like a heavy fog. I worry about what happens if this continues, if prices keep rising, if my income stays stagnant. What kind of life am I setting myself up for? The dreams I had once seem so far away now. I wanted to travel, to study further, maybe even buy a place of my own someday. Those plans have been shelved indefinitely, postponed for a future that feels uncertain. Coping isn't easy. I try to find solace in small things, listening to music, taking walks, journaling my thoughts. Sometimes I reach out to friends or family, though I don't always want to burden them with my worries. I remind myself that this isn't a failure, it's a struggle many people face in this economic climate. Still, there's a lingering shame, an internal voice whispering that I'm not doing enough, that I should be able to handle this better. The feeling of being trapped is the hardest part. It's like living in a house with invisible walls, where every move I make is constrained by the limits of my finances. I want to break free, to breathe, to live without counting every penny, but the system is set up so that it's almost impossible. Expenses grow faster than income, and I'm caught in the middle, trying to keep my head above water. Despite all this, I hold on to hope. I remind myself that this moment doesn't define me, that the sacrifices I'm making now are steps toward a better future. Maybe one day, I'll look back and see this struggle as the fire that forged my resilience. For now, I take it day by day, learning to find strength in vulnerability, and courage in the face of uncertainty. Because even when trapped, the human spirit has a way of dreaming, and dreaming is where freedom begins. It's funny how money feels like this invisible weight, always pressing down on me, even when I'm not actively thinking about it. But then, when I do think about it, when I really sit with it, it's like a wave crashing over me, pulling me under. I'm 26, working 2 part-time jobs, living in a tiny apartment I can barely afford, and every day feels like I'm just trying to stay afloat in a system that's designed to sink me. I didn't always feel this way. When I was younger, I dreamed big. I wanted to travel, to study more, maybe start my own little business. I pictured a future where I could breathe easy, where bills weren't a constant nightmare, where I could actually save money and maybe even help my family out. But now, those dreams feel like distant echoes. The reality is so stark, so relentless that I've had to bury those hopes just to keep going. Every morning, I wake up and check my bank account. It's a ritual filled with dread, even though I know what I'm going to see. The numbers barely move, and the expenses feel like they're on a rocket right upwards. Rent is insane, always creeping higher every year, and utilities, groceries, phone bills, transportation costs, they all add up like a mountain I'm climbing without a rope. My paychecks come in, but they get swallowed immediately by automatic payments, overdraft fees, and the occasional emergency expense. There's no breathing room, no margin for error. I've become so good at cutting corners it's almost a reflex. I meal prep to save money, but sometimes I skip meals just to stretch things out. I turn off the heat in my apartment even when my fingers are numb because I can't stomach the extra cost. I buy used clothes or nothing at all. Social outings have become almost non-existent because even a cup of coffee with friends feels like a luxury I can't afford. It's isolating. I don't want to burden anyone with my financial mess, so I keep it to myself, smiling on the outside while the panic bubbles beneath. Emotionally, this constant pressure wears me down in ways I never expected. Some days, I feel like I'm trapped in a hamster wheel, running and running but getting nowhere. I have anxiety that wakes me up in the middle of the night. I wonder if I'll ever break free from this cycle, or if I'm destined to live paycheck to paycheck forever. The shame is heavy too. I know people my age who seem to have it all figured out, buying homes, investing, traveling, and here I am, barely keeping the lights on. It feels like I'm failing, even though I know deep down that this isn't just my fault. The system itself feels rigged. Every time I try to get ahead, expenses spike, rent goes up, groceries become pricier, medical bills surprise me, and my income doesn't keep pace. The inflation they talk about on the news? It's not some abstract concept, it's the reason I had to cancel my gym membership, or why I've been driving a decade-old car that constantly needs repairs. It's why I'm so exhausted all the time. Working multiple jobs leaves little time or energy for anything else. I'm trapped in this loop where making more money seems impossible, and spending less becomes a form of self-denial. I do my best to cope, though. I've found some small comforts in routines. Journaling helps me process the overwhelm, and sometimes I'll take long walks just to clear my head. I've started meditating, even if it's just a few minutes, to keep the panic at bay. I cling to the hope that one day, maybe, things will get better. I'm trying to build skills, take online courses when I can afford the data, and apply for better-paying jobs. It's slow progress, but it's something. Yet, with each postponed dream, I feel a bit more of my spirit dim. I had plans to go back to school last year, but I had to shelve them because I couldn't afford tuition and living expenses simultaneously. I wanted to save enough for a trip to visit my family overseas, but every dollar went to immediate needs instead. Sometimes I wonder if those sacrifices will ever pay off or if I'm just postponing happiness indefinitely. I also worry about the long term. Retirement feels like a fantasy for someone like me. I barely scrape by now. How will I ever save for a future when every month is a fight just to cover essentials? It's terrifying to think about growing old without a financial safety net. The system promises opportunity and growth, but for people like me, it often feels like a cage. Despite all this, I try to remind myself that I'm not alone. So many others are in the same boat, navigating the same stormy seas. That shared experience, while sometimes disheartening, also gives me a strange sense of solidarity. It pushes me to advocate for change, even if just in small ways, talking about mental health and money struggles openly, supporting policies that aim to reduce inequality, and reminding myself that this pressure isn't a personal failure but a systemic problem. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to survive and hold on to hope. Hope that one day, the scales will tip. That I'll get a break, a chance to breathe, and maybe, just maybe, to live a life where money isn't a constant source of anxiety. Until then, I keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time, carrying the weight of this invisible burden with as much grace as I can muster. Because what else can I do? I'm still here. And that means there's still a chance. Some days, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up just a little faster than I can keep pace. No matter how hard I sprint, the finish line seems to drift farther away. The weight of bills piling up, rent rising like an unstoppable tide, and my paycheck stubbornly stuck in the same spot, it's exhausting. I'm 27 now, and yet, sometimes I feel younger, like I've been shoved into an endless cycle of worry and sacrifice that I'm too tired to fight against anymore. I grew up believing that hard work would pay off. My parents worked multiple jobs, and they told me that education, perseverance, and a good job would eventually lead to financial stability. I did my part. I went to college, took out student loans, got a decent entry-level job after graduation, and I tried to be responsible with my money. But the economic landscape I stepped into was nothing like what I expected. Rent in this city is ridiculous. When I moved into my tiny apartment, I thought $200 a month was high, but manageable. Now, it's $450, and the landlord hinted it'll go up again next year. Utilities, groceries, gas, everything's inching up steadily. Meanwhile, my salary has been stuck with only minor raises that barely keep pace with inflation. Sometimes I calculate how much more I make than I did 3 years ago and feel crushed because it doesn't even cover the extra $200 my rent cost me. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole at the bottom. This pressure infiltrates every decision I make. I can't just go out for coffee with friends without thinking twice, $4 here, $6 there, it all adds up. I've had to stop doing things I once loved, attending concerts, traveling, even simple weekend trips feel out of reach. Every time I budget for groceries, I find myself skipping fresh fruits or cutting down on meat because they're luxuries now. It's frustrating because I know these are basic things everyone deserves, but here I am, cutting corners just to keep the lights on. Sometimes I lie awake at night thinking about how different life might be if I hadn't taken on so much debt to pay for school, or if I had chosen a different city with a lower cost of living. I scroll through job listings, wondering if a career change or a move could give me the breathing room I crave. But even those thoughts feel like a luxury because switching jobs without a safety net or moving somewhere cheaper requires resources I don't have. It's a cruel catch-22. Emotionally, the strain is heavy. I feel ashamed, like I'm failing at being an adult. I see friends buying homes, starting families, traveling the world, and I can't help but feel left behind, like I'm on a different track entirely. But it's not just envy, it's fear. Fear that this financial squeeze is permanent, that it'll always be this way, that I'll never be able to build the life I want. It's a gnawing anxiety that I carry every day, under my skin, making it hard to breathe sometimes. I've learned to cope by tightening my grip on what little control I have. I track every dollar in a spreadsheet, obsessively clipping coupons, timing my showers to save water, and canceling subscriptions I barely use. I've even started meal prepping to avoid eating out, which saves money but adds a layer of exhaustion to my already busy days. These small victories help, but they don't erase the fact that I'm living paycheck to paycheck, always one unexpected expense away from disaster. Still, hope flickers in me, stubborn and quiet. I dream of a day when money isn't the constant shadow hovering over my head. I imagine owning a small place, maybe with a little garden, where I don't have to worry about rent hikes every year. I dream of traveling, not just quick weekend escapes but real vacations where I can breathe and reset. I want to start a family one day without the background hum of financial fear. But those dreams are tucked away, postponed for now, because reality demands I focus on the immediate. I tell myself that this phase is temporary, that I'm building a foundation, even if it's shaky and slow. I hold on to the belief that smarter financial choices, a better job opportunity, or maybe just a bit of luck will help me break free. I know I'm not alone in this. So many people my age are caught in the same cycle, and that shared struggle brings a strange kind of comfort. It reminds me that this isn't a personal failure but a systemic problem, one where the cost of living grows faster than wages, and where the promise of upward mobility feels more like a distant myth than a reality. At the end of the day, I'm just trying to survive, and maybe, one day, thrive. I remind myself that it's okay to feel overwhelmed, to be vulnerable, and to admit that this is hard. Because the truth is, it is hard. But giving up isn't an option. Not yet. So I keep going. I keep budgeting, applying for jobs, and looking for small ways to save. I talk to friends about these struggles, because silence only deepens the loneliness. I'm trying to be patient with myself, to recognize that progress doesn't always look like grand leaps, it often feels like tiny, cautious steps forward in the dark. This treadmill might be speeding up now, but I'm determined to find my pace and, eventually, get off. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. I never thought money would feel like such a heavy weight pressing down on me every single day. When I graduated college, I imagined that I'd be stepping into a world full of possibilities, maybe a decent job, some financial independence, the chance to finally breathe without constant worry. But reality hit differently, like a slow, relentless tide that just never seems to stop rising. I'm 26 now, and the economic pressure feels less like a series of obstacles and more like a cage I can't climb out of. Every morning, I wake up with a knot in my stomach, thinking about bills, rent, groceries, the basics that seem to demand more and more from my paycheck each month. Inflation isn't just a headline for me, it's the empty spaces in my fridge at the end of the week, the cautious glances at my bank app, the agonizing decision between buying a pair of shoes I need or saving that money for an unexpected expense. It's this constant math game, where my income feels frozen but prices keep climbing like they're on some unfair ladder that I'm not allowed to step on. The job I have is stable but far from lucrative. I'm grateful to have it, sure, but the pay barely stretches enough to cover rent in this city, let alone the other costs that come with living independently. Utilities, transportation, insurance, each feels like another bite taken out of my paycheck before I even get to decide how to spend what's left. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, is this what adulthood was supposed to feel like? Because honestly, it feels more like surviving than living. What hurts the most is the creeping sense of being trapped. I see people around me buying homes, starting families, traveling, investing in their futures. And here I am, holding on to the bare essentials, postponing dreams I used to have, like traveling abroad, or going back to school, or even just having a weekend without worrying about money. The hope I once had feels stretched thin, almost faded. There's a frustration in watching the gap between where I want to be and where I am grow wider every day, and feeling powerless to close it. Some days, the stress crushes me. I lie awake at night thinking about what happens if my car breaks down, or if an unexpected medical bill comes through. I think about how every decision is filtered through this lens of scarcity. Can I really afford to eat out? Should I buy the cheaper brand even if it's not as good? How many hours can I pick up at work before I burn out completely? It's exhausting, both physically and emotionally. Yet, in the midst of this pressure, I try to find small ways to cope. I've learned to celebrate the little victories, making it through the month without overdrawing my account, finding a discount on something I need, or even just cooking a meal at home instead of ordering takeout. I talk to friends about this stuff, and there's a shared understanding that sometimes the economic system feels stacked against us, young adults trying to find our footing. Those conversations help remind me I'm not alone, even if the struggle feels deeply personal. Sometimes I write in my journal, allowing myself to be honest about how I'm feeling, frustrated, scared, sometimes hopeless. But I also write about the dreams I haven't given up on. The dream of owning a small apartment someday, even if it's modest. The dream of going back to school to study something I'm passionate about, when I have the chance. The dream of finding work that pays better but also makes me feel valued. I hold on to these dreams quietly, like fragile flames that need protection from the harsh winds of reality. The economic environment feels like this invisible force shaping my every move, dictating what's possible and what's not. It's not just numbers and budgets, it's emotional, too. It affects how I see myself, my worth, and my future. Sometimes I feel ashamed, like I'm not doing enough or that I've failed somehow. But then I remind myself that this isn't a failure on my part, it's a system that wasn't built for people like me to easily succeed. If I had one wish, it would be for breathing room, a chance to catch my breath and plan a future without constant fear. A future where I can make choices based on what I want, not just what I can afford. I know that might sound naive or idealistic, but it's the hope that keeps me going. Because even when the system feels relentless, I still believe that change is possible. And maybe one day, I'll look back at this period as a chapter that tested me but didn't define me. For now, I'm holding on, taking it day by day, learning how to survive within this economic pressure, and quietly dreaming of a life where I can finally live, not just get by. It's strange how money, something so basic, so necessary, can feel like a chain wrapped tightly around your ankles, dragging you down every single day. I never thought I'd be where I am now, caught in this endless loop of worry and restraint, but here I am. 27 years old, working 2 jobs, trying to keep my head above water in an economy that feels like it's designed to crush people like me. Some days, I wake up before dawn, my body heavy with exhaustion even though I just got to sleep a few hours earlier. The alarm buzzes at 5:30 a.m., and my mind immediately races through the list of everything I have to do: pay the rent, cover the utilities, get groceries, keep my phone on so I can keep applying for better jobs. And the kicker? None of it feels like it's enough. There's always something: an unexpected bill, a price hike, a fee I didn't see coming. Rent this month was higher than last, and honestly, I'm not sure how I'm going to make it next month. I keep telling myself I'll find a better paying job or at least something with benefits. But every application I send feels like a drop in the ocean. The competition is brutal, and I'm competing against people who have connections, degrees, or experiences I don't have. The few interviews I've managed to snag usually end with the same polite "we'll get back to you" message that never actually comes. The cost of living feels like it's on a fast train, speeding ahead of my paycheck and the few side gigs I pick up. Groceries alone have become a challenge: no more fresh fruits and veggies, just the cheapest canned and frozen stuff. Sometimes I feel guilty even buying a coffee, which used to be my little treat, something to look forward to in the mornings. Now, it's a luxury I can't afford. Every expense feels like a choice between survival and a shred of dignity. Do I pay the phone bill so I can keep searching for work, or do I buy food? Do I put gas in my car so I can get to my second job, or do I save that money in case something breaks? The choices pile up and crush me. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's this constant background noise of anxiety, that gnawing feeling that no matter how hard I try, I'm not moving forward. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up: you keep pushing, but you're stuck in the same place. The hopelessness creeps in during quiet moments, the ones when I'm alone and the world seems so big and I feel so small. Sometimes I wonder if I'm broken or if the system itself is broken. It's easy to blame myself for not working harder or being smarter, but deep down, I know the problem isn't just me. The wages haven't kept up with inflation, and the cost of essentials keeps climbing like a mountain I can't climb. There's no safety net, just the cold ground if I slip. I try to cope the best I can. I've started journaling, just to get the feelings out of my head and onto paper. It helps to know I'm not alone in this, that other people feel the weight too. I also talk to a few close friends who understand, even if they can't really fix anything. Sometimes just hearing "I get it" is enough to keep me going for a little longer. But the dreams I had? They feel so far away now. I wanted to travel, to see new places and meet new people. I dreamed of going back to school to study something I love, maybe art or writing. I imagined having a home where I wasn't counting every penny, where I could invite friends over without worrying about how much food I could afford. Those dreams feel like luxury items I had to put on the shelf indefinitely, maybe forever. The idea of saving for anything beyond immediate survival is almost laughable. Sometimes I catch myself thinking, if I can just get through this month, then maybe next month will be better. But the next month is always just as hard, sometimes worse. There are moments when I want to scream or cry or both. I've cried in the shower when no one was around to hear me. I've lied awake at night, heart pounding, stomach knotted with dread about what happens if I lose my job or if my car breaks down. The fear of falling deeper into debt or homelessness is a real shadow that haunts every step. Despite all of this, I haven't given up completely. I hold on to small things: a kind word from a coworker, a good book borrowed from the library, a moment of peace watching the sunset. I remind myself that this situation doesn't define me, even if it feels like it's defining my life right now. I hope, maybe naively, that someday I'll break free from this cycle. That I'll find stability and not have to worry about rent or food or medical bills every single day. I hope that the dreams I shelved will get dusted off and taken down again, that I'll have the chance to live a life that feels more like what I imagined when I was younger. For now, I'm doing what I can, working hard, staying cautious with my spending, and holding on to hope, even when it feels like a fragile thing. Because sometimes, hope is the only thing left when the numbers in your bank account keep shrinking and the world keeps asking for more than you can give. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep going. I never thought I'd be this tired this early in life. Some days it feels like I'm just dragging myself from one paycheck to the next, barely keeping my head above water. It's not that I'm lazy or don't want to work harder, it's just the world around me makes it feel impossible to get ahead. Every month, the bills come in like clockwork, and every month, I'm forced to make impossible choices. I grew up hearing about the American dream or whatever you want to call it, owning a home, having some savings, maybe even a little vacation here and there. But those things feel so distant now. When I started working after college, I thought I'd have at least a bit of breathing room. I imagined paying rent, grabbing a coffee with friends, maybe even saving a little each month. But the reality hit me fast. Rent shot up faster than my salary did. Groceries cost more than I expected. Utilities, gas, phone bills, they all climbed steadily, like an endless mountain. I feel trapped in a system where my income just doesn't keep pace. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up whenever I try to slow down. I get paid, then it's gone, almost immediately, swallowed by expenses that never seem to pause. And the pressure doesn't just hit my bank account, it squeezes my entire life. I can't remember the last time I made a spontaneous plan or bought something for myself without guilt gnawing at me. Little things I used to take for granted, like eating out, going to a movie, or even buying a new jacket when the old one got too worn, have turned into luxury items that feel out of reach. I find myself constantly calculating, if I buy this, will I have enough left for groceries next week? Will I have to skip a bill to cover rent? It's exhausting. The mental load is just as heavy. I'm always worried, always anxious. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, thinking about how I'll cover an unexpected expense, a car repair, a medical bill, or even something as simple as a phone screen cracking. I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to imagine how I could make things work, how I could possibly make more money or spend less without sacrificing my sanity or basic needs. The stress feels like it's wrapped around me like a heavy blanket I can't throw off. What's even harder is how this financial pressure has stolen parts of my identity. I used to be so excited about my career, about learning new skills, about growing as a person. But now, every hour I spend working is just about survival. I can't afford to take a pay cut to go back to school or pursue something I'm passionate about. The dreams I had in my early 20s, traveling, buying a home, starting a family someday, feel like they've been shelved indefinitely. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever get to those dreams at all. Coping with all this isn't easy. Some days, I distract myself by binge-watching shows or scrolling endlessly through social media. It's a way to escape, even if just for a little while. Other times, I try to focus on small wins, cooking at home instead of eating out, selling things I don't need, or finding the cheapest groceries on sale. I've gotten pretty good at stretching every dollar, but it feels like a game I'm doomed to lose. I've learned to lean on a few close friends who understand the struggle, even though it's hard to talk about money without feeling shame. I've faced moments where I've had to admit to family that I can't help out financially the way I once hoped to. It's humbling, and sometimes humiliating, but being honest about my situation has helped me feel less alone. Still, beneath the exhaustion and frustration, there's a flicker of hope. I remind myself that this isn't forever. I don't want to be stuck here my whole life. I want to find a way out, even if it takes years. Maybe it means going back to school eventually, or switching careers. Maybe it means moving to a cheaper place, or starting a side hustle. I'm not sure yet, but I hold on to those small sparks of possibility. Every so often, when the stress isn't too overwhelming, I let myself dream. I imagine what it would feel like to wake up without that heavy weight pressing down on me. To be able to afford a night out without anxiety, to save for a trip or a future home. To build a life where money isn't the thing dictating every choice I make. Those dreams keep me going on the hardest days. I'm sharing this because I know I'm not alone. So many young adults are living this same story, working hard but feeling like the system is stacked against us. It's not about a lack of effort or ambition. It's about an economic reality that pushes expenses higher and income slower, making everyday life feel like an uphill battle. And that's okay to admit. It's okay to feel tired and frustrated. It's okay to be vulnerable. Because the truth is, surviving this isn't just about managing money, it's about managing hope. And I'm holding on to mine, even if it's a little worn and fragile right now. One day, I believe I'll get there. I'll find a way to breathe easier, to live a little freer, and to chase those postponed dreams. Until then, I'm just trying to keep moving forward, one paycheck at a time, and reminding myself that this moment doesn't define my whole story. I never thought financial stress would feel like this, like a constant weight pressing down on my chest, something I carry with me every single day, whether I'm awake or trying to sleep. It's exhausting in a way that goes beyond physical tiredness. It gets into your head, makes you question your worth, your choices, and your future. I'm 27, and yet it feels like I'm stuck in a loop designed to keep me just barely afloat, always scrambling to cover the basics but never getting ahead. I grew up believing that if I worked hard and played by the rules, I'd build a stable life. My parents worked multiple jobs to support us, and their message was clear: education and dedication are the keys to success. So, I went to college, got my degree, and landed a decent job. It pays the bills, mostly, but the economic environment today feels like it's rigged against me. Every month, rent goes up, groceries cost more, utility bills climb higher, and yet my paycheck hasn't seen a real raise in years. Sometimes it feels like a cruel joke: the cost of living rises faster than my income, and I'm expected to keep pace, but I'm sprinting uphill with a backpack full of stones. My daily decisions are dictated by this pressure. Simple things, what to eat, how to get around, even what to wear, become a calculus of affordability rather than choice. I skip meals sometimes, or eat cheaper, less nutritious food because fresh vegetables or meat are luxuries. I drive my car until it squeaks and coughs instead of fixing it properly, because the mechanic's bill feels like a penalty I can't afford. Even buying new clothes isn't about style or comfort but about necessity when something is worn through. It's humiliating and exhausting to constantly justify these small compromises. Social life? That's almost a distant memory. I avoid going out with friends because splitting a dinner or paying for a movie feels like an indulgence I can't afford. Invitations come with an invisible price tag I'm too ashamed to ask about but too scared to refuse. I sometimes wonder if people notice I'm always the one saying no, or if they just think I'm boring or antisocial. Honestly, it hurts, but loneliness is easier to handle than the anxiety of overspending. So, I retreat into my apartment, scrolling through social media where everyone seems to have the freedom to live without these invisible chains. The emotional toll is immense. There's a persistent undercurrent of anxiety that wakes me up in the middle of the night. I lay there thinking about bills, about whether I'll be able to cover unexpected expenses like a medical visit or a car repair. I worry about the future, my future, and it feels like I'm stuck in a cage. The system is set up so that expenses always grow faster than income. Rent rises every year, insurance premiums climb, and everything else just chips away at my paycheck. Trying to save is like pouring water into a bucket with holes in it. Some days, I feel defeated. It's hard not to, when it feels like no matter how much I try, I'm treading water. But I also have moments of stubborn hope. I tell myself that this isn't the story I want to end up with. I still dream of a life where I don't have to count every cent, where I can take a vacation without guilt, where I can buy a home and maybe even start a family someday. But those dreams have been postponed again and again. I've put off further education, traveling, buying a car, even things as simple as getting new glasses because the cost is just too much. It's like my life is on hold. To cope, I've learned to be resourceful. I coupon, shop sales, and use every possible discount. I pick up side gigs when I can, but that just adds to the exhaustion rather than providing real relief. I try to stay positive by reminding myself this is temporary, but it's hard not to feel like I'm failing somehow. The truth is, I'm scared that this cycle will never end, that I'll always be stuck just surviving and never truly living. What makes it worse is the feeling of invisibility. I'm not asking for charity, just acknowledgement that this system is broken for people like me. That we're not lazy or irresponsible, we're just caught in a harsh economic reality where wages don't keep up with inflation and opportunities for advancement are scarce. I wish there was more empathy, more understanding, and maybe more meaningful change. I share this story because I know I'm not alone. So many young adults are navigating the same maze, feeling trapped and overwhelmed. And maybe by speaking honestly about it, I can find some peace in knowing that this struggle is real and valid, and maybe, just maybe, that will help me find the strength to keep moving forward. Because despite everything, I haven't given up on hope. I'm holding on to it, fragile but alive. Every morning, I wake up with this heavy weight pressing down on my chest, the kind of weight that's invisible but suffocating all the same. It's the weight of bills, debts, rent, and that relentless pressure that no matter how hard I work, it never feels like enough. I'm 27 now, and this has been my reality for as long as I can remember. Not because I'm lazy or careless, but because the system we live in feels like it's designed to keep people like me trapped in this cycle where expenses spiral out of control, while income inches along at a snail's pace. I still remember the day I realized how tightly the noose was around my neck. I'd just received my paycheck, and after the rent and utilities were deducted, I had maybe $150 left to cover food, transport, and anything else for the entire month. I thought I was doing okay, working 2 part-time jobs, trying to stretch every dollar, but the numbers didn't lie. That paycheck felt like a slap in the face, reminding me that my time, effort, and energy didn't translate into real security or peace of mind. What makes it harder is watching prices soar in every aspect of life: groceries, gas, healthcare, even the basic things like phone bills and internet. I see headlines every day about inflation and economic growth, but none of that growth reaches me. It feels like the system is rigged, like I'm on a treadmill that speeds up every time I try to catch up. The cost of living climbs faster than I can raise my income, and that gap feels like a chasm I'm destined to fall into. I've had to make choices that I never thought I'd have to. I stopped going out with friends because even a small dinner or coffee felt like an extravagant expense I couldn't justify. I declined invitations to concerts and trips, knowing full well that fun and enjoyment had become luxuries, not options. The weight of financial pressure isn't just about numbers, it's the isolation it breeds. I miss spontaneity and laughter. I miss the feeling of being carefree, something I associate with my childhood before money started dictating my every move. Every week, I sit down with my budget spreadsheet, a simple document I've made to keep some semblance of control. But it feels like trying to hold back a flood with a paper towel. There are always surprise expenses: my phone needs repair, the bus fare spikes, or a medication costs more than I expected. I try to stay calm, but the anxiety creeps in. That gnawing fear that I'm one small crisis away from falling apart completely. Emotionally, this financial strain wears me down. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about what the future holds, or rather, what it doesn't hold for me right now. I had dreams once, dreams of travel, of going back to school, of saving enough to get a decent apartment and maybe even start a family someday. Those dreams have been shelved indefinitely, gathering dust on some distant shelf because right now, I'm just trying to survive. Hope becomes something I tuck away carefully, like a fragile keepsake, because it hurts too much to dream when reality is so relentless. Coping isn't easy, but I've found some ways. I write, even if it's just a few sentences each day, because putting my feelings into words helps me untangle the knots inside. I find moments of peace in small things: a walk in the park, a cheap book from the library, or just sitting quietly and breathing deeply. Sometimes I reach out to a friend or family member, even if it's just to say, "I'm struggling today." It's humbling to admit vulnerability, but it reminds me I'm not alone. The hardest part is feeling stuck. Like I'm caught in this invisible cage, watching others move forward while I stay in place. People say, keep working hard, things will get better. But hard work alone doesn't change the equation when the system itself is broken. It's exhausting, disheartening, and sometimes I wonder if I'm failing at life simply because the cards I was dealt are so unfair. Yet, despite all this, I hold on to a sliver of hope. Hope that one day, things will shift, that wages will catch up to costs, that there will be more opportunities for people like me, that I'll find a way to break free from this cycle. I remind myself that my worth isn't defined by my bank account, even though it feels like it every day. I'm still here, still fighting, still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. This is my story, a story of quiet endurance and the invisible battles that many of us face every day. Maybe by sharing it, I'll find a little less loneliness in this struggle and maybe, just maybe, some understanding from a world that often looks away. Because at the end of the day, I'm not just a number or a paycheck, I'm a person with hopes, fears, and a stubborn heart that refuses to give up. I never thought I'd be this exhausted by my own life before hitting my late 20s. But here I am, running on a loop of stress and tight budgets, feeling like I'm stuck in a system designed to keep me small. It's not just the numbers on my bank statement, though those haunt me every day. It's the creeping feeling that no matter how hard I work, my income barely scratches the surface of what I need to live, let alone dream. I work a decent job, at least on paper. 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, steady paycheck coming in like clockwork. But when rent, utilities, groceries, student loans, and that ever-growing list of miscellaneous expenses hit, I'm left scrambling. And it's always scrambling. I've gotten so used to the tightrope walk between just enough and not even close that it's become a kind of normal. But normal doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Every month feels like a countdown to anxiety. The rent is due on the 1st, and I can't stop thinking about it even as the month starts. Will there be enough? Did I account for the utility bill hike this season? How about the car's maintenance? Or the random emergency, like when my phone screen cracked last month and suddenly I was looking at an unexpected $200 expense. I don't have a cushion for emergencies anymore, that was long ago spent on life's curveballs. This constant pressure shapes every decision I make. Eating out? That's a rare treat now, something to be planned for, maybe once every couple of months if I'm lucky. Social gatherings, even coffee with friends, sometimes feel like luxuries I can't afford. It's isolating. I want to say yes to everything because I crave connection, but my bank balance says no, and so I learn to say no too. There's a dull, persistent ache that comes from postponing dreams. I used to imagine saving for a small apartment of my own, a place that felt like home and not just a stopgap. I dreamed of traveling, even just once, to see parts of the world that aren't filtered through a screen. I wanted to go back to school to study something I was truly passionate about, not just what felt practical. But every time I make these plans, I have to shove them aside, shelved like old books I don't have time to read. The system feels like a trap. I watch prices climb, groceries, rent, insurance, gas, while my paycheck either stagnates or grows in tiny increments that barely outpace inflation. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up the more you run. No matter what I do, I can't get ahead. The bills stack, the worries multiply, and the future feels more like a far-off fantasy than a destination I'm moving toward. I try to cope the best I can. I've become hyper-aware of every dollar spent. Coupons, sales, second-hand stores, these are not just thrifty choices, they are survival tactics. I've started cooking at home all the time, learning to stretch ingredients to their fullest. I avoid unnecessary subscriptions or impulse buys. But even with all these small sacrifices, it's never quite enough. Emotionally, it's a roller coaster. Some days, I feel overwhelmed and close to breaking. There's a sadness in realizing how much potential I have, how much more I could be, if only I weren't shackled by these financial chains. There are moments of shame too, feeling like I'm not measuring up, like everyone around me has their lives figured out while I'm barely treading water. But I remind myself I'm not alone, that this is the reality for so many people my age, caught in this economy that values profit over people. At night, when the noise quiets and I'm left alone with my thoughts, the loneliness hits hardest. The weight of unmet goals presses down, and I wonder if things will ever change. I try to hold on to hope that one day, maybe I'll find a job that pays more fairly, that inflation will slow, or that I'll discover new ways to build a better life despite the odds. But hope is fragile, and some nights it feels like it's slipping away. I keep reminding myself of the small victories, though. Like managing to pay all my bills on time this month. Like finally saving a tiny bit for emergencies, even if it's just $20. Like reaching out to friends and not letting the isolation win completely. These little wins are what keep me moving forward. It's hard to talk about all this because it feels like admitting defeat. But really, it's about being honest, with myself and others, about what it's like to live in this economic reality. I want people to understand that behind every paycheck is a story of struggle and perseverance. Behind every missed opportunity is a choice forced by circumstance, not desire. This story isn't about giving up. It's about surviving, about holding on to the possibility of better days while navigating the exhaustion of today. Maybe someday soon, I'll have the space to dream again, not just dreams postponed, but dreams pursued. Until then, I'll keep walking the tightrope, learning to balance the weight of now with the fragile hope of what's next. I wake up every morning with this knot in my stomach, a weight that's hard to shake off, no matter how much coffee I drink or how early I get out of bed. It's not just the usual Monday blues or feeling tired from a late night. It's something heavier, something that digs deeper because it's tied to money, the relentless, unforgiving pressure of it. I'm 27, living in a small, rented apartment on the edge of the city, working a job that pays the bills but never seems to stretch far enough. And when I say never, I mean it. Every month feels like running on a treadmill that speeds up just as you think you're catching your breath. Rent, utilities, groceries, student loans, transportation, it all piles up and climbs faster than I can keep up. The cost of living keeps rising, but my paycheck? It's like it's stuck in slow motion, barely inching forward. I remember when I first started this job, fresh out of college, full of hope and excitement. I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, to maybe start my own business someday, to have a little financial cushion so I wouldn't feel so anxious all the time. But reality hit hard and fast. The more I tried to save, the more unexpected expenses popped up. My car needed repairs, medical bills from a surprise illness, a broken phone I couldn't ignore. It's like the universe had this cruel way of reminding me that there's no such thing as a free pass. Sometimes I feel trapped in a system that's designed to keep people like me just barely afloat. The news talks about inflation like it's this abstract number, but for me, it's the difference between eating something fresh or cheap, skipping the occasional coffee treat, or turning off the heater when it's freezing just to save a few dollars. And the worst part? I know I'm not alone. So many friends and coworkers share the same story, overworked, underpaid, and overwhelmed by bills that grow faster than their income. My days are a constant balancing act. I budget obsessively, tracking every expense, clipping coupons, hunting for sales, and praying I don't get a flat tire or a surprise dentist bill. I've gotten so good at stretching my money that I almost feel like I'm cheating the system. But that feeling never lasts long. Deep down, I know it's just a fragile shield against the reality I'm stuck in. Emotionally, this pressure wears me down. There are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, thinking about what would happen if I lost my job or if something bigger came up. The stress gnaws at me until I'm exhausted, but sleep rarely comes easy. I try to keep busy, distracting myself with TV shows, podcasts, or late-night runs, but there's always this underlying anxiety that never quite goes away. I've had to put so many dreams on hold. That trip to Europe I promised myself after graduation? Shelved indefinitely. Saving for a car? On pause. Even thinking about buying a home feels like a cruel joke. Instead, I focus on surviving, paying rent on time, keeping the lights on, and hoping that somehow, someday, this endless cycle will break. What keeps me going, though, is the small moments of hope. Sometimes I meet someone who understands and talks openly about their struggles. It reminds me I'm not alone. I remind myself that this is a season, not a lifetime. I try to believe that if I keep working, keep pushing, maybe the future will be brighter. But some days, the weight feels unbearable. I hate feeling trapped, like my life is dictated by numbers on a paycheck and rising bills. I want to believe in a system that works for everyone, not just the privileged few. I want to believe that hard work can still pay off. For now, I'll keep going, day by day. Because despite everything, giving up is not an option, not when there are still dreams to chase, even if they're just waiting quietly in the background, whispering that one day, I'll find a way out of this pressure cooker and breathe freely again. I never thought I'd feel so stuck. Like, truly stuck in a place where no matter how hard I push, how fast I run, the ground beneath me just keeps shifting, pulling away. That's what this ongoing financial pressure feels like, a trap that tightens every day, with no clear way out. It wasn't always like this. When I finished college, I had a decent plan, or at least, I thought I did. I found a job in marketing, nothing glamorous but steady. The pay wasn't amazing, but it covered rent, food, bills, and a little extra here and there. I remember those first few months with this cautious optimism, thinking, I'm an adult now, I've got this. But then, little by little, things changed. First, it was rent hikes that made my monthly budget scramble. My landlord said the building needed renovations, which meant higher costs for all tenants. Then, groceries started getting more expensive, especially fresh produce and staples. Public transportation fares crept up. And my utility bills, heating, electricity, seemed to inflate overnight. I tried to tighten my belt, skipped a few social outings, cut back on streaming services, even swapped my gym membership for home workouts. But still, at the end of each month, I was left staring at my bank balance, wondering how it could dwindle so fast despite working full-time. What really wears on me is the feeling that my income isn't keeping pace with this rising tide of expenses. My salary barely nudges up, usually some fraction of a percent, if it goes up at all. And inflation? It feels like an invisible tax that slowly siphons away the little I earn. Every paycheck is like filling a bucket with holes, no matter how much water I pour in, it leaks out almost as quickly. This constant balancing act affects every decision I make. Should I cook at home tonight or order food? Cooking is cheaper but time-consuming, and after a 10-hour day, sometimes I just want to collapse. Should I buy that new pair of shoes or wait? They're not exactly essentials, but my old ones are falling apart. Should I skip the dentist appointment this month? Because that's what I do, put off things that matter because I can't afford them right now. And then there are the little moments when I see friends or family living differently. They go on weekend trips, buy new gadgets, dine out frequently. I'm genuinely happy for them, but there's also this gnawing pang, what if I'll never be able to do that? What if the dreams I once had are permanently on hold? I wanted to save for my own place. To decorate a home that feels like me, to have a space where I can breathe and not worry about noisy neighbors or leaking pipes. I dreamed of traveling, just once or twice a year, seeing new places, meeting new people. I imagined being able to give my family little surprises or help them out when they needed it. But every month, those dreams get pushed further down the list, replaced by paying off credit card bills or making sure the electricity stays on. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There are nights when I lie awake, my mind spinning through the numbers again and again. Anxiety creeps in, what if I lose this job? What if an emergency comes up? What if I never get ahead? Some days, I feel this deep shame, like I've failed somehow, even though I know logically it's the system, not me. But knowing and feeling are two very different things. I cope in small ways. I journal, trying to keep my thoughts from swirling into chaos. I meditate when I can, though that's sometimes hard with a buzzing brain. I reach out to a close friend or two, who listen without judgment. I try to remind myself of the small victories, making it through the month, finally fixing a leaky faucet myself, or getting through a tough day at work. These tiny wins keep me going, even if they feel insignificant against the bigger backdrop. What hurts the most is the sense of invisibility. Like I'm just another face in the crowd of people trying to keep their heads above water, struggling silently. There's no easy fix, no simple advice that makes it better. It's a slow grind, and it wears down your spirit if you let it. Yet, despite all this, I haven't given up completely. Somewhere inside, I still hold on to hope. Hope that one day the scales will tip. That my work will pay off in a way that feels fair. That I can build a life where money isn't the first thing I think about every morning. I still imagine what that might look like, maybe a small apartment of my own, plants on the windowsill, a shelf full of books, the freedom to say yes to things without the immediate sting of cost. Until then, I keep moving forward. One paycheck at a time. One careful choice at a time. Because being trapped in a system that feels designed to hold you down is terrifying, but giving up isn't an option. This is my reality. Not glamorous or easy, but honest. And if sharing it helps even one other person feel less alone in their struggle, then maybe it's worth it. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.